I have qualified for the World Championships 4 years in a row, and usually the World Championships is a tournament where people try and be creative and, outskill their opponent in deck building. However, this year I am not going with that approach. Not at all, actually. I'm playing Raging Bolt to this year's World Championship. Don't ask how I've ended up on this deck, but we are here. As for the decklist, I've gone through quite a few decklists, but one has stood out to me quite a lot. It's a decklist that I kind of just built up from the ground up because the original just wasn't working out as much as I wanted to. If you guys want to learn more about the deck and this specific decklist, I have a guide about the deck and I'll be updating the guide tomorrow for this decklist. But let's take a look. So this is the decklist I am talking about. There are a few changes I still would consider making. For example, the 3 stadiums I'm not exactly sold on. The Iron Leaves is still a question mark as well. And then on top of that, the Cypher Maniac can definitely be changed out. Also the energy counts. I don't mind having 7 grass. However, I wouldn't mind this going up to 8 grass and cutting a fighting down to 2. Or you can add another lightning, go up to 3 over here, and cut a grass down to 6. Those are all of the kind of things we've been playing around, but there's definitely one main thing about this deck that I really like, and that is the high accounts of Glass Trumpet and the energy retrieval. So the problem with the Dragapult matchup from my testing is that the Crushing Hammers early really hurts you. Also, during the mid-game, Crushing Hammers can be the difference between you attacking with Raging Bolt and getting a knockout, because you have to do 350 damage, which is 5 energy, or dealing 280 damage with 4 energy, because there's a lot of times where you just miss by 1 energy. Because Crispin gets you 2 energy, you might have 2 Teal Masks in play, and you can Teal Dance twice, meaning you get 4 energy in total, and you just miss by 1 energy, right? However, the high accounts of Glass Trumpet looks to counter that. It looks to help you out with the Crushing Hammers. When an opponent hits Crushing Hammers, you can get that energy back with the Glass Trumpet onto your colorless Pokemon if you have a Terra. And usually you will have a Terra because Teal Mask Ogopon is very strong when trying to attack with Raging Bolt. But why is this, better than why is this better than the original build? I think this is more consistent. And right now, consistency is key with a deck like this. It is a basic box deck that does not require a lot of setup and just wants to take knockouts as fast and as easily as possible. That is the identity of Raging Bolt. And that is why I think I want to play this deck to Worlds, because it's consistent. You're going to be playing against the top players in the world for about 8 hours on one day. You definitely do not want a deck that is going to make you stress out and overthink things. So Dragapult is a really good deck. However, I think if I'm able to just be able to play a consistent deck and play my game, I'll be able to do better on Raging Bolt than Dragapult. Even though I have played thousands of games of Dragapult, I think the Dragapult mirror is just a little bit too coin flippy, right? Going first is important, hitting Crushing Hammers heads is important, and it's not as, skillful as people really think. So I'm taking all of the skill out of everything and playing Raging Bolt. But there is a method to the madness. So obviously the whole point of the game is to take 6 prize cards first. And I think this deck is really good at doing just that. You have lots of ways to take knockouts. For example, against Dragapult, you need to take 2 prize cards usually before your opponent is able to swing with a Dragapult. And that is not very difficult to do with Mega Kangaskhan, because you just set it up in the beginning of the game, you're drawing cards, you're dealing knockouts, they're stage 2, they have to manually evolve into this stage 2, and it's honestly just not a bad shout, right? Then you also have Wellspring Ogopon, which if your opponent has a slower start, you can punish with the Wellspring Ogopon. However, you don't really want to go and get greedy into the Wellspring Ogopon because it doesn't leave energy on the board. You're essentially getting 3 energy onto this Pokemon, but then on the next turn you have 0 energy in play because you have to shuffle it back into the deck. Whereas the Kangaskhan, you get 3 energy into the play and it stays as 3 energy once your opponent attacks. If they Phantom Dive for 200 damage, your 3 energy is still in play. You can now just get a Crispin onto a Raging Bolt, bring up the Raging Bolt, and swing for 350 damage to knock out a Dragapult because of your 3 energy in play. Or, if you want to, you can discard this energy with something like the Chien Pao plus the Area Zero combo, and use your Glass Trumpet and Energy Switch combo to get it back onto these Pokemon to deal more damage. However, the Teal Mask Ogopon just shuffles it back into the deck. So usually, the Teal Mask Ogopon is not the greatest attacker in the early game in all games. I would definitely say it's good if your opponent only has 2 Dracloaks and you can snipe both Dracloaks. That's good, because it's going to buy you a long time to, re-establish another attacker. But something else that stands out to me is actually putting the emphasis on Raging Bolt. Something that I think I was making a big mistake was putting a lot of emphasis on Lily's Clefairy. And don't get me wrong, Lily's Clefairy is a great attacker. However, I think it takes away the the strength of Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt has 240 HP. It cannot be one-shot by Dragapult, whereas Liz Clefairy can. Obviously, Liz Clefairy requires a lot less setup than Raging Bolt, but the problem is that Unfair Stamp plus Knockout Clefairy, you don't have an attacker for the following turn. Raging Bolt, sure you don't have an attacker for the next turn because you have to discard energy, but those energies are very easy to get back into your hand. You have so many ways to find energy and get them reattached. Plus, if you had a decent start, you probably have more than 5 energy on board anyway, meaning you don't even have to get rid of all of your energy while you're doing, Bellowing Thunder. On top of that, our ace spec is Prime Catcher. I think Prime Catcher just helps out the consistency of this deck a little bit more. It just allows you to get a little bit more aggressive with like the gust of Prime Catcher plus something like a Crispin or Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking. You can go ahead and Cypher Maniac for Prime Catcher plus Red Card is a combo that I go for quite a lot. And that leads me to my next point. Unfair Stamp just kind of goes a little bit too against the identity of this deck. I think Red Card is perfectly fine because against some decks you can kind of force them to go through Kangaskhan and then they go down to 3 prize cards, and then from there you can just Red Card them whenever you want, right? The other problem is with Red Card sometimes is that if your opponent takes a 2 prize first, they're gonna be going down to either 2 prize card or 1 prize card, meaning you're only gonna have 1 turn of the red card, like to find red card. But if you let them take the 3 prizes first, they will guaranteed go down to 1 prize card on the following turn, because there's no way you're gonna let them knock out another Kangaskhan, otherwise something's gone horribly wrong. So that means you can red card on that turn or on the next turn, right? So you have essentially 2 turns, this turn over here and then this turn over here where they go to 0 to actually use your red card, right? Then you've got Iron Leaves. And Iron Leaves, in my opinion, is a bit of a questionable attacker. But the idea here is, one, very easy to kind of, attack with early, because Teal Dance plus Crispin anywhere you get an attack off, right? It can snipe Zoroarks. It can... Garchomp's not going to be there. It can snipe Zoroarks, right, very easily, but it also does 170 damage, meaning it can snipe Meowths, right? And the nice thing about being able to snipe Meowth is that a lot of decks just play Meowth. So if you're able to just get a really cheeky one-shot on a Meowth, it's pretty good. So Boss's Orders plus Iron Leaves, you get a very easy one-shot onto a Meowth. And against Dragon Ball and stuff like that, it has 220 HP, so you can energy switch these energies off of the Iron Leaves and just get rid of it with GM Power, right? It doesn't just die. The Clefairy is still included in the deck because Clefairy is still a very strong attacker into a lot of decks, but I don't think it is as strong as people think it is in this deck. I think if you want Clefairy, go play Slotbox. Also, complete side note, you might be looking and questioning, what the hell artworks am I using? I decided to go for a theme here. I wanted to try get all of the cards that are looking right. You can see that there are definitely some outliers and some frauds that do not look right, they look left. But shout out Raging Bolt, Ogerpon, Kangaskhan, Latias, Fez, Clefairy. He only has a 1 that's looking down the middle, so like I guess 50% on this guy. Shout out Iron Leaf, shout out Ursaluna, Chimpao, no, Meowth, kinda, question mark, Ultra Ball, Energy Switch, Glass Trumpet, Energy Retrieval, Night Stretcher, Red Card, Prime Catcher sucks anyway, Cyrano my goat, Boss Order's my goat. We'll pretend all of the energies are looking right, and Era Zero is quite literally just a place. It can't look. But that is the side tangent down. Then we have Ursaluna. And Ursaluna is a card that I was considering adding, but I never really thought it was that good until I actually added it. There is a very big difference between hitting an early Raging Bolt and hitting a late Raging Bolt when you have been unfair stamped and red carded and energy crushing hammered and phantom dived and you are on the floor homeless begging for mercy. There is only one man to bail you out of that situation, that is Big Dog Ursaluna, Big Bear, Big Brother coming in for Overwatch. It is so easy to just manually attach, or earlier on in the game, prep your Ursaluna because he's a beefy boy, Glass Trumpet onto a Kangaskhan and an Ursaluna for your Raging Bolt, knock out whatever's inactive, get rid of your Kangaskhan energy, and all of a sudden, you have Beefy Boy ready to just snipe a Meowth or snipe a Fez at the end of the game, which is so nice. It is so much easier than trying to find your Clefairy that's been knocked out with your only copy of Night Stretcher, find a Crispin or Glass Trumpet plus E-Switch, and then, try and knock that out, or get Raging Bolt back inactive with a 5 energy to actually, knock that out. It is a lot easier to just go, Ursaluna, Boss, or Prime Catcher, GG. It is so nice, and this happens against a lot more decks. Plus, with Crispin and Energy Switch and Glass Trumpet, you can power this guy up a lot faster. I have gone for some like turn 2, turn 3 Ursalunas in many different matchups. For example, in the matchup Mega Excadrill, this just makes knocking out your opponent's Genesect so much easier, right? Because obviously that prize map is usually like a 1-3-2 prize map, and this one is obviously really easy because you're probably taking knockout with like rapid fire combo. Then this 3 is a bit more complicated because you have to get the Raging Bolt into play. But then this 2, I think, is the most difficult one, because usually it is like a Clefairy, Full Moon Rondo, Boss's Orders, or Prime Catcher knock out their Fez or Genesect, right? And it's not an easy combo to pull off because they'll probably red card you there, but big dog, right? Big Bear, he does it so much easier. So this is the deck that I think I'm playing towards, but I'll just reiterate some cards that I am a bit still have question marks on. Is Iron Leaves, question mark. Wouldn't mind a 4th Stadium. Sorry, you can't see that. Wouldn't mind a 4th Stadium. Energy counts, I would say question mark. Maybe go down to 6. You know what? Let me do it. Let me put it on this side. Maybe I'll go down to 6 instead of 7. Energy. My bad. I'm 23. Might go back up to 3 if I go down to the 6 grass. Might go down to 2 fighting and go to 8 grass, right? Why was 6 scared of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. That is the original 6-7 meme, if you know. If anyone's a ball knower, or like just not 12. You know what's crazy to me? There's people that are genuinely born in 2026. Have you ever thought of that? Someone was born today, like, on their passport and on their birth certificate it's going to say 2026 born. They're going to live to see the year 3000. Can you believe that, lad? Can you believe that? Because I can't, lad. Anyway, Prime Catcher, my goat, much better than Unfair Stamp. It's good every time you see it. There are so many times where I see Unfair Stamp and I'm like, brother, you do nothing because I have just knocked out my opponent's Dreepy. Right? We are not being knocked out for another 4 turns. Dragapult is taking a 6 prize turn and avoiding Unfair Stamp the entire game. Like, don't get me wrong. They could do the exact same thing for Special Red card, but at least we get to play our pink card that game, right? And then other questionable things, the Cypher Manix code breaking, kind of jobless card, I'm not going to lie. There's so many times where it's just bad, and so many times you're like, oh my god, this is the best card I've ever played. This could just be like a 4th Glass Trumpet, because why not? But you could also start putting stuff for like Dusk Balls for more like Pokemon consistency and stuff. But yeah, anyway, this is the problem with the Toolbox deck, is that this could be anything and also nothing at the same time. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys believe in Raging Bolt, smash like. If you don't believe in Raging Bolt, comment down below why. And if you are a real human being from Earth, you should subscribe. If you are not, hi. Why are you watching this video? Anyway, I'll see you guys in San Francisco. All of you. I expect all 7,500 of you to come to San Francisco to say hi. All of you, including the people that subscribed to this channel before it was a Pokemon channel, right? Regardless, I'll see you all later. I've probably dragged this video on long enough, and I'll see you my Pookies later.